Join us on Geek Blood, the show you can't ignore. Wayne and Kevin diving deep into all things galore. Comic book, movie, sci-fi, and action thrill. Reviewing new TV shows, we keep it real. Reminiscing the Attitude Era, wrestling at its peak. Nostalgia from the 80s and 90s, memories we seek. Pineapples for our rings, a unique touch. Geek culture in our blood, we love it so much. Geek Blood forever, we love it so much. Geek Blood, where we talk about it all, from superheroes to wrestlers. We stand tall, Ray and Kevin, the dynamic duo in sight. Geek Blood, shining bright, shining bright. Did you hear about Pluto? That's messed up, right? Geek Blood, taking you on a nostalgia flight. From movies to TV, we cover it all. Join us every week, we'll have a ball. Shuffle.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. You?
Not much.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
We have a jam-packed show. Not a lot of new stuff we're talking about. A couple of
Thank
things,
God.
but mostly old stuff.
Mm.
And a big, huge Superman topic, which we'll get into in a few. But I want to talk about a couple of documentaries I watched on Netflix.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Here we go. Netflix documentaries. They're always fucking good, or usually fucking
Oklahoma City bombing, American Terror. These are all under 2 hours long, but if there's stuff like this stuff we grew up with, but we were so young,
Yes.
we don't know much about it.
Yes.
It's good to know some of this stuff. Oklahoma City bombing happened in 95, 96. I can't remember the exact year. I think it was 95. But talked about Timothy McVeigh and all that. I thought that was very, very good. Netflix does a great job with their documentaries as far
Speaking of Oklahoma City bombing, last night the Pacers beat them by like fucking 30, forcing a game 7. Sunday, bitches, let's go. I really want the Pacers to win.
I didn't do a T-Ray Sports this week, but I heard that Jenny Buss sold the Lakers.
Yes. For like $10 billion.
It's crazy. I think it was $10 million he bought it for.
They bought it for like $10 million on credit. Like they didn't even pay that off for like 10 years. Like the way they bought it, because you watched the show. So I went over that in the show. But
huge investment return on that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You think?
And she's married to Jay Moore from Mad TV, the comedian.
Yep.
Crazy.
She's been around for a while. She's been around the block.
Yeah.
Whore.
Okay. I've actually heard that before. Another documentary. This is about a crypto heist.
The dog.
No, this is actual crypto, like currency. And this came out, I believe, last year. It's all about Bitcoin. And this couple stole like $4 billion worth of Bitcoin, something like that. They stole it when it was low, but since Bitcoin had that big, huge surge like 10 years ago, it grew to $4 billion. And they were all keeping it hidden, and they couldn't access any of it because if they did, the government were going to come after them. So they had it all hidden in a whole bunch of different accounts. It's a great documentary. It's about an hour, probably an hour and 45.
I got a quick Bitcoin story. Did you see this? This one around the internet about probably within the last year. In 2009 or 10, there was a video game tournament. First place got like 500. Second place got like a 300. Third place got like 200, whatever. And fourth, fifth, and sixth place got like 10 Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
So if they just kept their Bitcoin, then they would be like millionaires now. Like that's insane.
That's hard. Bitcoin is such a hard thing to. If you were in the beginning and you kept that,
oh my God. Yeah.
You hear stories of people losing their passwords for the Bitcoin from a decade, 2 decades ago when it first started.
Yep.
And they're trying to get it now and they can't find it because you have to have a specific password. That's what this documentary is about.
Okay.
The FBI go in there and try to catch them, but they in order to get evidence, they have to get the passwords for the Bitcoin. And this couple are dumb social media influencer. She they hid the passwords in a computer in like a hidden folder, and the FBI found it. It's great. It's a great story. It's on Netflix as well. The other documentary, this is a great documentary. I love Elvis, love his music, love the story of Elvis. This doesn't get into his death. This gets into pretty much him becoming a huge star in the 50s and going into the army and having to get back into his celebrity. And then all culminating in this big, huge TV network special, Elvis Return special. This documentary is called The Return of the King, The Fall and Rise of Elvis Presley. It doesn't go any further than 1968, so it doesn't talk about him being bloated up and on drugs and dying on the toilet. It doesn't get into any of that. But it does talk about up until this big, huge comeback special, which was
it's
awesome.
fucking crazy to me that we are both currently older than Elvis was when he died.
Yeah.
Right? Did he die at 40 or 41?
I don't remember his age, but yeah,
I think it was 41.
young.
So
Yeah.
we're like at or older than he was, which is fucking insane to me.
Yep, yeah, very crazy. But all these are on Netflix. I wanted to watch these. We're going to get into some heavy Superman talk in the next few weeks, so I want to get some of this shit out of the way. Plus, I really didn't have anything new to watch this week, so I watched those.
Yeah, we are out of shows. We have no TV shows
for now. But we're gonna have some coming up.
We're gonna have Ironheart. I'll listen to you.
2 movies. Yeah, next week. 2 movies. 28 days later.
Oh, you finally saw him. Good.
28 weeks later.
Yes.
Of course, the new one came out 28 years later. Came out today. We'll watch it whenever. But I wanted to get these out of the way. 28 Days Later came out in 2002, so right when we graduated high school. Danny Boyle, who before this did Train Spotting. Since then he's done a whole bunch of stuff. He did Slumdog Millionaire. He's just an acclaimed director, creator. This is a very, in fact, I watched it in HD, but the camera is just so he filmed it on a hand cam. The whole entire movie, filming it through London.
It's very chaotic.
On the cheap, chaotic, exactly.
Yes.
Good word for it. Starring in one of his first, if not his first movie, Cillian Murphy. Brendan Gleeson, one of his first movies. This is before Harry Potter.
It was Killian's first distributed movie, like nationally distributed movie, I believe.
Yeah. Brendan Gleeson, Bad Eye Moody in the Harry Potter movies. This is before that. Christopher Eccleston, he was the 9th Doctor in Doctor Who. This is before that. And Naomi Harris, who was in all the Bond movies with Daniel Craig. Great movie, but
So
28 weeks later, I think was a little bit better for me, just because it upped the heights to it.
Yep.
It was set 28 days later, so
it's like Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
We're just
made 5 years later, 2007. But Danny Boyle didn't come back to. Oh, by the way, all of this written by Alex Garland, who is popular for Ex Machina.
We both love.
Civil War, Wolf Warfare, modern day great.
Yep.
And this is his first getting into writing. He wrote 28 Weeks Later.
He's also to me, is like the anti-Zack Snyder, where he makes a cohesive story. I don't think he's ever written a movie that's been like longer than 2 hours. Like he does all of his movies very cohesively, like hour and a half to 2 hours, which is awesome.
Yeah, these flowed. These movies, all these movies flowed. Jeremy Renner, one of his first, if not his first starring role. He got Hurt Locker the year after this, and of course Hawkeye after this. But Idris Elba, one of his first movies. He got The Office right around this time. That's the first time I saw him in The Office. He was in one season. Robert Carlyle, you know the face. He's kind of the star of this in the beginning, and then he turns into a zombie. Spoiler. He was in a show called Once Upon a Time. It was on ABC. It took like the Disney fairy tales, and they turned it into this like 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't remember how many seasons it was, but it was pretty good. He was in that. He played Rumpelstiltskin. And Rose Byrne, who was in X-Men First Class. That was the first time I think I saw her. Maybe in Bridesmaids too, around the same time. She was in this as well. And it picks up 28 days later. Where London has been 28 weeks, sorry, and London has been shut down, and they supposedly exterminated all of the virus, the zombies, and they started opening it up to people to come back into this quarantined area, not in the city limits of London because they're still cleaning that up, but they brought it in, and of course the virus gets in there. The only thing I don't understand about this movie is there's one woman who is a survivor from being bitten, I guess, and she has some sort of I'm not sure if they're going to explain it in the new movie or not, but she has some sort of an immunity where she has the infection. She can infect people. She does in the movie. That's how the infection goes into the city of London. But she has no symptoms of being a zombie. She's not like craving human flesh. She's not out of her mind. Wasn't really fully explained in this movie. I'm wondering if that's what the new movie is all about.
Maybe.
Because her daughter survives. I'm getting into spoilers, but her daughter survives at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else dies pretty much. But yeah, and that just it leaves a whole world open that they're finally getting into. What, 18 years later, they're opening this Pandora's box again.
I still wish it was called 28 months later, and then they went to 28 years. But I think there was so much of a time gap between weeks and the new one that they just decided just go with this.
You know the story between the new movie? You know what's going on with it? What happened with it?
All I know about the new movie is one of the main characters is slinging dong and doesn't wear pants the entire time.
I don't know that.
Well,
but
you do now.
It's owned by Fox. You know what happened with Fox and Disney?
Yes. Yeah.
The studio didn't want anything to do. In fact, they took 28 Days Later off the streaming sites when the Fox merger happened. The original, I can't remember, one of the original producers of 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later bought the franchise from Disney, which you don't hear about too often. And then they sold it to Sony, sold the rights to Sony. So the new movie's coming out with Sony Pictures.
Okay,
Paramount.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's kind of the history of what happened and why this movie took so long.
Maybe that's why they couldn't go with months. Maybe that was already copyrighted in the bank, so to speak, with the other company. So that would make sense. Just a guess, but yeah.
There are comic book crossovers with this spin-offs. I don't know much about those either, but yeah, good movies. And I cannot wait to see the new one and see where it goes.
I heard the ending is fantastic. So
yeah, that's what I hear too. A big, huge opens up the world, kind of like this one did too. So
I was gonna go see it last night, but I had to get back to the fray.
Okay, Superman. Speaking of Superman, great documentary, Selling Superman.
Holy shit!
We had to talk about this documentary because this is a crazy story. This father who was collecting comic books since the 60s, 50s when he was a kid. He had this huge comic book collection.
He got, I believe, at the end of it, they said he got most of the collection during the 70s. He started in the 60s.
Yeah. He had deals with a local comic shop. He was a lawyer, and he was doing work like under table, and he would get comics given to him, stacks of comics. So they found this collection, and they knew the father had this obsession. They realized he had Asperger's, or he was autistic.
Yes.
Later on, but now they realize that he has this obsession because he was Asperger, autistic, whatever you want to say. And he collected the whole entire house, not just a room, not just a closet. The house was filled with comic boxes, long boxes. The closet was stacked with boxes. He had
living the dream.
I saw this, Kevin, and I looked at your future because you started collecting Siegel issues. I told you, slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
In this documentary, 4 parts in this documentary, came out last year, self-made. It's on iTunes if you want to watch it. But the collection had almost every single iconic issue, especially from the 60s going up until the 80s, 90s. And it was worth tens of millions of dollars. The 2 prized possessions of it are Batman *1 and Superman #1.
Mm-hmm.
Superman #1 is the most pristine, the second most pristine copy. It was like an 8.0.
His was a 7. The most pristine was an 8.
Yeah, that's what it was. I couldn't remember. Yeah,
yep.
But yeah, he ended up the collection was so vast, so much. He had so many of different versions of it too. From Superman to Spider-Man #1, he had a whole bunch of stuff. And because he had so much stuff, he made a deal with the CGC, who graded the comic books, to make their own custom label, which I thought it was cool. Never done before, hasn't been done since. And there's a very cool dramatic. Well, I don't know about cool, but dramatic scene in episode 3, I think, and episode 2 or 3, where the Superman #1 gets dropped in its plastic case. And they are panicking because if there is any scratch to that comic book, if it goes from a 7 to a 6, you're talking millions of dollars in loss. And it was just the tension of bringing it back to the CGC to get graded, take the broken plastic off, put new plastic on. The tension there was just so thrilling. And it's a thin line between collecting and hoarding. I mean, this was definitely a hoarding situation. And then when the son, who is a star of this documentary, takes over his father's collection and starts looking into it more, he's getting into the barter game. He's selling and buying to still keep the collection, still build the collection.
He has them locked up like they're in the fucking Pentagon too.
Yes,
like each door has like its own. Yeah. You have to have like a key and a passcode for each door. It's like fucking turning the thing to launch the rocket at the right time. You know? Yeah.
He had the whole entire Superman run from #1, which is the most expensive, to 468, which came out in 1990. Whole entire run. But yeah, crazy documentary, 4 parts. If you love anything about documentaries, if you want to see something crazy about this story, it's called Selling Superman. It's on iTunes.
It's like $13. It's definitely recommend. Like
worth
it's
watching.
Worth it. Yeah.
And just crazy to see what this father and what this collection, and it ripped his family apart. He got divorced from it, estranged from his sons, especially his older son, who's a little bit more successful, you could say, in business. And he came in and took over the collection. The other one
seemed like he had a lot of money himself, considering he had everything locked up in a goddamn warehouse that nobody can break into.
Yeah, with cameras, and he had those big trailers in there. Like 4 of them stacked together.
It was like the Batcave from like The Dark Knight. Like outside of not being underground.
And it was cool to see him. He was making business deals to try to sell them in the Comic-Con market with different comic sellers, which is really cool to see.
People were hating on him too for all this. They showed that part, and then like by the end of it, people were like, "Good luck, man. Keep doing what you're doing." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, the comic community did not care for this guy for some reason.
To the point where at the end of the documentary, he wishes that he didn't make the documentary. He just had a bad taste about it, telling the whole story. But yeah, great documentary. Recommend that highly. So we are weeks away. Superman. We have our tickets. We're ready to watch it. But we are now in a new time period in Superman. We've talked about the 60s. We talked about the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Got into the 2000s last week with Superman Returns. Superman Returns 2 did not happen. Let's talk about the story of why it did not happen before we get into the Man of Steel and the Snyderverse. In 2008, a reboot was planned. Warner Brothers brought in a whole bunch of comic book writers with reboot ideas. Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns, Mark Waid, Brad Meltzer. A lot of those came in, trying to come up with ideas of what they could do to restructure whatever happened in Superman Returns, because Warner Brothers thought it did not make enough money. They wanted to keep what the original sequel's title was going to be from Bryan Singer was Superman Man of Steel. They wanted to keep the Man of Steel part. That's the only decision they had. Morrison's idea was similar to his work on All-Star Superman. Wade's idea was similar to Birthright, which are 2 comic books. We've read All-Star. Birthright, you've read.
Yeah, I love Birthright. So good.
And that was kind of the original idea. Mark Miller, who's done a whole bunch of Kick-Ass. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. He teamed up with Matthew Vaughn to plan this epic 8-hour Superman movie in 2008, a trilogy. And it was going to be released a year apart, similar to The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. And it was going to chronicle the entire life of Superman from Krypton. It was going to actually show him growing up on Krypton and having to leave Krypton as a young adult, and then going to Earth would have been a sequel. And then the last part of the trilogy was going to be Superman dying, losing his powers as the sun goes into supernova. Would have been a crazy story. That was pitched. Brainiac, Zod, Lex Luthor were all part of it as main villains. They considered Charlie Cox to be the Golden Age style Superman in that series.
That was before he was anything anywhere.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. And it had a similar tone to what the Donner films were. And Vaughn later considered the Man of Steel sequel in 2017, which we'll get into in probably later on. But in 2008, George Miller from Mad Max was going to do the Justice League Mortal movie. You remember that? It was all cast, all ready to shoot. I think they were within 10 weeks of shooting, and it was shelved during the writer's strike of 2008. And this is just a glimpse of all the actors that were in it. Armie Hammer being the one person known that was cast as Batman. And what's his name was playing the Flash from he was in the League. I can't remember his name.
Wasn't it the guy from Shazam?
The OC. Yes, he's in Shazam too. I can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about. I can picture Adrian
Brody.
Yeah.
Adam
Brody, not Adrian Brody.
Not Adrian.
Adam,
Yes.
Yep. Adam Brody.
He was a Flash. And I can't remember. There was other younger actors, but they were going to bring the whole entire Justice League to do a movie. But that also got canned and shelved because of the writer's strike. And then 2009, the Siegel estate sues Warner Brothers. They want to get 50% of the rights back to Superman's origins and the Siegel estate, the copyright of Action Comics #1. So Warner Brothers made a deal with them. However, if they did not make a production with a new Superman film by 2011, the Siegel estate would have been able to sue for lost revenue for an unproduced film. So Man of Steel was fast-tracked quickly. Who was the most popular director at the time at Warner Brothers? Christopher Nolan, because of the Dark Knight trilogy. He comes in because of the stipulation. The film reboot was fast-tracked with his idea, with David S. Goyer coming in with his idea for the movie of bringing in a new take on Man of Steel, a new darker tone, similar to what the Dark Knight was.
You know why Goyer started writing this movie, right?
I read it, but I can't remember.
He was on Happy Sad Confused, and he was talking about he and Chris Nolan were writing The Dark Knight Rises, and they just hit a wall, and Nolan was like, just take a week off. And so they just both took a week off, and he started writing a Superman film because he was like, I need something to get my creativity going.
Yep.
And then at the end of the week, they got back together, and he basically was like, this is my idea for Superman film, and that's where Nolan kind of took it to the Warner Brothers at that point.
Yep. He took it right to Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers needed something quickly, and that's what they got. These are the character posters: Superman, Zod, who they brought back, and Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe. We'll get into all the casting.
Zod still might be, his portrayal by Michael Shannon still might be my favorite villain in a comic book movie, outside of maybe Heath Ledger's Joker. And it's tough for me to put Thanos in there because it's like all CGI, but he's up there. He's fantastic, which we'll get into.
More posters, more promotional posters came out, if you remember when this movie came out. And they brought in Henry Cavill to play Superman Clark Kent.
Nolan's choice, not Zach's. Just wanted to point that out. Zach wanted Manganiello.
The Count of Monte Cristo, young Henry Cavill. Was that 2002, 2003?
Yep.
He auditioned for Superman Flyby, which is the original J.J. Abrams movie in 2002. I think it was a couple years later when that movie was going to be way too young at the time.
I think he was 20 or 21. It was around the same time he auditioned for Bond, and then he auditioned for Returns, I believe, also. And
he did. He auditioned for Returns. Ralph won out on that. Interesting casting news. I don't know if you knew this. All considered for the role: Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois.
Yep.
Matthew Good from The Watchmen, The Offer. We just watched him a couple of years ago. Jamie Dornan, Joe Manganiello from he was Snyder's second choice.
Yes.
Colin McDonough, who played Captain Hook in Once Upon a Time, the show I just talked about a little while ago. All considered for the role of Superman, but Henry Cavill won out.
It would have gone to Manganiello, but he had True Blood at the time, so he couldn't get out of that deal, which is why they went with Cavill.
So this is what we got. That's Henry Cavill trying on the Christopher Reeve Superman outfit, and that's a test outfit from the Superman costume we're going to get for Snyder. This is the very first picture I remember. Where is it? Wrong slide. For Superman debuting at Comic-Con, maybe? I can't remember where this debuted. But Superman at the safe. Very first time you see this brand new vision of what Zack Snyder has for Superman. Dark tone, of course. We kind of figured that going in with the Dark Knight. being the huge success that it was, that movies were kind of going into that direction. But yeah, it debuted at Comic-Con in 2011, 2 years before the movie came out. Rounding out the cast, we have Russell Crowe, like I mentioned, as Jor-El. Original ideas were Sean Penn and Clive Owen.
Interesting.
Islet Zaher as Laura. She was Vanessa in Daredevil. Kevin Costner coming in as Jonathan Kent. Signed on before reading any of the script and ultimately hates how the role turned out now. Talks shit about it now to this day. Diane Lane as Martha Kent. Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Original ideas were Kristen Stewart, Zoe Saldana, Olivia Wilde, and Mila Kunis. They all tested for the role. Christopher Maloney played a colonel named Colonel Hardy.
I love Maloney in this movie.
Great
We'll get to that later.
Auntie Trui, I don't know her name, but she played Ferrara. She played one of the Kryptonian. Yep. Alice Eve, Diane Kruger, Rosamund Pike, all considered. Gail Gadot passed because she was pregnant. Michael Shannon as General Zod. Viggo Mortensen, Daniel Day-Lewis originally considered for that role. Could you imagine a Daniel Day-Lewis Zod? Yeah, that would have been crazy.
That would have been awesome, honestly. I would have been down for it.
But Michael Shannon, like you mentioned, blew this part out of the water.
So good.
And directed by Zack Snyder, produced by Christopher Nolan. A little behind the scenes glimpse of them chopping it up.
Zack looks so young there.
Yeah. This is what, 10 years, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Things of note: Christopher Nolan's involvement, producer credit. We already talked about that. Dark Knight kind of opened the door. Story written by David S. Goyer. He wrote the Blade trilogy, Dark Knight trilogy, Batman versus Superman a couple years later, Terminator Dark Fate. He's showrunner and writer of Sandman, the Sandman show on Netflix currently. Co-written and directed by Zack Snyder. Guillermo del Toro turned it down. Robert Zemeckis was approached. Ben Affleck was also approached. Darren Aronofsky, Duncan Jones, Jonathan Liebsman, I don't know who that is, Matt Reeves, and Tony Scott were all considered, all passed, and went to Zack Snyder.
So it looks like out of all the people they were looking for, there's only one or two names in the group. Like Zack Snyder was a name, but like his biggest movie at that time was probably Watchmen.
Even
maybe
Affleck.
300. This is before Affleck was known as a director.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting choices. Like it looked like they were going for somebody relatively unknown for the directing outside of Scott.
The viral marketing in this, just like The Dark Knight, had some great viral marketing. Was fantastic. The websites, I think I can't remember what it was. Man of Steel. There's a weird website for this whole entire thing where a transmission, a voice message started showing up on this website, and you find out it was actually Zod's voice, a deep space message being transmitted to Earth, saying, "You are not alone. Earth must return Kal-El to his custody, and he must surrender within 24 hours, or the world will suffer the consequences." Cool, dark turn. Of course, we're not used to seeing something like this in Superman in the last decade or two. But
again, outside of these movies.
Yeah, a little dark. But it also shows Michael Shannon for the first time in Zod. This is going to be menacing. This is going to be great. Movie opens up with probably the best depiction of Krypton on screen so far. Very sci-fi, very much solar flares, camera flares. But yeah, the ships, the space of it all.
It's a dope opening.
Galactic.
It's very good.
Galactic opening.
Yes.
Aliens, everything. But yeah, there's Jor-El. And they have this thing called the Codex, which holds all the life in Kryptonian history. What's it been 10,000 years? They haven't had a live birth. In this story, Jor-El and Lara have the very first live birth in 10,000 years, and it happens to be Kal-El. And yeah, at one point, I want to put the picture there. He does wear the black suit, Russell Crowe, as Jor-El. Then you see them. They do give a natural birth to Kal-El, and they know that the planet of Krypton, because they've taken so much of the minerals and stuff out of the planet, they know that the planet is weakened and it's being destroyed from the inside out. And Jor-El is trying to warn them. It's a big, huge trope of every single Superman story. Nobody's listening to Jor-El's warnings that the planet Krypton is going to explode. So he ends up having just enough time to make one small capsule for their son, so he can survive and send the Codex off onto a close by far away planet with this similar
atmosphere
and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. Jor-El gets killed by Zod. Weird touch because it never happens. R.I.P. Zod gets arrested. Can't wait to talk about this. But first, they send off Kal-El, goes into space. That's the pod he gets sent in.
That's the head of the dick ship.
Yes. Speaking of dicks, Zod gets sent to the Phantom Zone. But why are they sent in big, huge, giant dongs up into the Phantom Zone in these weird-looking spaces?
Why does Zach make fucking vagina portals in Rebel Moon?
Right.
Why does Zach want his 9-year-old son to be standing in front of his son's mother while she's naked in a movie? He's got some weird, twisted sexual things, but visually he's incredible.
Look at that Michael Shannon Zod picture right there.
Oh my god,
that's
so
like
good.
The epitome of what we love in this movie. This movie.
Yes.
But that's the Phantom Zone. It looks like the triangle there on the far right is the Phantom Zone, similar to what we saw back in the day with the Donner movies, but a little bit different. But they're all sent to the Phantom Zone, and as Krypton explodes, which I think he did a great job showing the Krypton explosion in this movie. The Phantom Zone gets destroyed. The Kal-El ship has already been sent off to Earth. The Phantom Zone that Zod and all of his henchmen are on gets destroyed, and they take over a ship, and they end up following to Earth somehow. They end up going there. And then 20 years later, many years later, we meet Henry Cavill as a crab fisherman.
There he is. He's like Charlie Day in Always Sunny. We're crab people now, D.
But yeah, that's Henry Cavill, his debut as Superman. And this is him when he was younger. They show a little glimpse of him as a young kid and as a teenager getting his powers from into Smallville. And then, of course, you see Jonathan Kent talking to the young teenage Clark.
The infamous scene that I want to talk about right now.
Okay, we'll stop here and talk, yeah.
So, of course, a lot of people take aim with the fact that when Clark says, was I supposed to just let them die? And Jonathan takes a beat and he says, maybe. And then he goes on this ramble. This entire scene would have been fixed if instead of saying maybe, what he should have said is, no, you did the right thing. It just might not be the right time to do it. Something along those lines. And then keep the dialogue the rest throughout what he says to him. But when he says maybe, that's not Jonathan-like to me. Now that I have actually experienced, because a lot of people might not know, Ray knows this is the movie that made me want to read Superman. And now that I've read so much Superman, I understand everyone's issues with a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie. If he had just reassured him that he was doing the right thing, but it might not have been the right time to do it, I think that scene would have gone over a lot better, or at least a little better. But the fact that he was basically just maybe. No, you're Jonathan Kent. You're not. No, you're raising him so that he's not. Because there's Superman stories where literally Jor-El sends him to Earth to take over Earth. Jor-El's a dickhead in Smallville because he wants Clark to basically take over Earth. And Clark was raised so well by the Kents that he won't do it. So we'll see, which I think that might be Jor-El in the new movie because of the scenes we've seen of him talking to his father of I'm not who I thought I was supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, continue with your notes.
Henry Cavill hitchhiking.
Are you sure that's not in a Rambo movie?
No, it looks like Rambo though. Perry White in the Daily Planet.
Great Perry White. Love him as Perry White.
I think he did a great job.
Fantastic.
And Superman taking flight. My favorite scene from this movie.
My favorite scene and my favorite part of the soundtrack is First Flight. Absolutely love it.
You're seeing the gravity going around his hand as his fist is in the snow, and you see the gravity of all the rocks and the stones and the snow flying around it in a circle. And then it just takes flight. It goes crazy into the atmosphere. The picture there on the bottom right is him flying around in space. It's very, very cool.
I like Zach using the shaky cam during the flight sequence in this. Because it makes it very it makes it feel real, which I love.
Yeah. And one of my first controversies from this movie.
Yep. Let's get into it.
Lois finding out within minutes, but however, I'm gonna get into it in a minute. But figures out in a minute that he's Superman. Number one, she's a reporter.
Literally a 40-second scene of her going to Smallville somehow, finding Pete Ross, hashtag not my Pete Ross, talking to him at the IHOP, because apparently that's all Pete Ross can amount to is fucking managing an IHOP in Smallville. And then next thing you know, it's like she's talking to him.
Yep. She's a reporter, so I get what he's trying to say. He said she's a reporter. She can figure it out. She's the world's best reporter, I guess. But it just felt so quick, so out of place.
Rushed, yes.
Rushed, yep. And the biggest controversy of this movie for me, up until the ending, is this scene right here.
Okay, let me just pull up my notes right here because I did some research into tornadoes while I was watching this film. All right, you go on with yours. I got my notes pulled up, and I'll get into mine after you're done.
If you've never seen the movie, there's a tornado that goes through Smallville. Jonathan and Clark are in their truck, and Clark goes to save a whole bunch of people on the other from the tornado. I think he's trying to hide from the tornado underneath the bridge. And as the truck is going to be destroyed and Jonathan's going to be destroyed, he wants to run to help his father. Jonathan puts up his hand saying no because he doesn't want to risk a whole bunch of people seeing that he's Superman. And then the tornado comes, takes the truck, takes Jonathan, and he dies.
Yep.
That's how he dies in this movie. He always dies in Superman's story, but the way he dies is fucking ridiculous.
Yes. Over a dog.
Yes, over a dog, yes. And the dog does run out of the truck.
I have a bunch of issues with this entire scene. When I saw Man of Steel, I didn't have an issue with it. But as I've read, I have more issues with it now every time I see it. It was a dumb death. Because one, he tells Cal to make sure everyone's safe under the overpass, which, if you're in a tornado, is worse than being stuck in a tornado is to go to the underpass. Funny enough, Corn Sweat was in the new Twisters movie, and they showed you exactly why you do not do that, because it creates more of a cyclone, and you are essentially fucked. Right. Now, let's talk about Cal, or him telling Cal not to get the dog or whatever, and holding Cal back from saving him. Okay. The fatality rate in tornadoes is literally 1%. There's a guy, David something I was reading about. He got picked up in a tornado. He was in the eye of the tornado and landed over a mile away from where the tornado was and lived with only a broken arm. Wow. He knew that Cal could not be hurt by this tornado. Sure, he probably didn't know about the super speed yet, because even though it's a 33-year-old Henry Cavill playing a 19-year-old Clark, he didn't know the extent of his powers. Right. And that was only because they wanted one scene with Cavill and the father, obviously. So it is what it is. It's like throwing a backwards hat on Jigsaw to make him look 30 years younger. Right. Whatever.
Yes.
So, anyways, he could have survived this and nobody would have questioned a thing. Because people survive tornadoes all the time, especially in that area of the country. Yeah. So to me, that's a huge thing. And that's also, I believe I read that was a Zack Snyder thing, where Jonathan was in the first couple of drafts until Zack was attached to this movie. Jonathan was going to live until Clark was at the Daily Planet. Like, Jonathan was supposed to live throughout the entire movie. Similar to what we're getting in the new Superman, because I love the Superman Jonathan dynamic when Superman's actually like working at the Daily Planet. Sometimes you have that in stories, sometimes you don't. Depends on where they're with the story. But yeah, I think this entire scene is fucking stupid.
And the Jonathan Kent stuff that changed after Crisis of Infinite Earths.
Yes,
I mean that was when he was after that he was alive. Jonathan Kent was alive for the whole entire thing, and he died during the death of Superman.
Yep. Yeah. Like you get some All Seasons has some great Jonathan and older Cal stuff in it. A lot of other books too. So
fast forward, current time, Zod has found out where Kal-El is. And he starts his invasion process on Earth. And the turmoil that happens on Earth through the army, through all the national media and everything, very cool how it played out in this movie. Just the hysteria, the fear of what's going on. There's something, a UFO flying over the Earth. sending this weird
I
message.
mean, this movie is
everybody's getting.
basically an alien invasion movie. Is all this
Yep.
movie is.
Yep, it is.
Just
And
has Superman.
Clark, after he's got his powers, he's already started flying. He's got a Superman suit. He went. By the way, the Superman suit in this movie, already made by Jor-El, is kind of like a space. It was kind of like a space suit, kind of with the House of L hope symbol under the S. And that's him watching the live footage of the spaceship flying.
This is a scene that I have in my notes. I still get a lot of goosebumps. This scene, I love this scene a lot. Like when he's basically like trying to figure out what to do, and am I going to save the people of Earth or not?
This is all from the viral marketing campaign that I talked about in the beginning. This is the whole scene played out where he's saying, surrender Kal-El or reap the consequences of what's going to happen to you if he doesn't surrender.
Yes.
So Superman ends up surrendering to the army. Before
that, I want to get to one more thing. The scene with the priest, who, by the way, I don't know if you know this, is the kid that's bullying him in the previous scene. There's a quick flashback to him as a kid where P. Ross gets Kevin Costner, and he's like, Kevin Costner's like, they hurt you? He's like, they can't. And he's like, that's not what I mean. He's allegedly the kid with the dark hair in that scene, which is why it goes to the priest scene. Also get goosebumps during that scene because the priest, like, he knows who Kal is, and then when he finds out he's like, oh, like he just kind of has like a grin on his face. I love that scene.
Right.
But yeah, continue.
But he does surrender to the army. One of the colonels is Christopher Maloney. I like that scene of him flying in front of the sun.
The third scene that gives me goosebumps is Maloney saying, "This man is not our enemy." I love that scene.
And this was the big, huge viral marketing of Superman being arrested. Of course, being played out again in Superman, the new one. And I love this scene too, reminiscent of The Dark Knight, bringing back the visuals of the interrogation room.
Yep.
But he can see and hear everything. You see right through the double-sided
Guy's
glass.
got wintergreen lifesavers, which is my favorite kind of lifesaver.
Yeah. And he meets Zod for the very first time. Shannon Zod coming in. And he starts to harvest his memories and goes into his brain and see where he's from in Kansas, showing him what will happen if he doesn't surrender, the whole entire landscape of what Zod has planned for the whole world of Earth to take over, and make it a Kryptonian metropolis. And he's standing on a whole bunch of skulls.
Basically, the ashes of Earth he's standing on.
And Superman's like, you're not going to do that. So they have a big, huge knockdown, drag-out battle that starts in Smallville. Fiora goes in, starts choking Ma Kent. Superman's
Martha.
No. Oh, no, don't get into the Martha stuff yet. Next week.
Well, that is her name.
Yes, that is her name. But they go into Smallville, have this really cool, epic battle right in front of a 7-Eleven. And he fights Kryptonians there, and then he ends up fighting. And then this whole invasion happens. They have what are those machines called? I forgot to write them down.
The World Ender?
World Enders, something like that. And they go and they're trying to terraform the Earth to make the atmosphere like Krypton, so all the Kryptonians don't have to wear their face masks anymore. Because they're wearing these oxygen masks because they can't breathe on Earth. Like Kal-El has lived there for so long that he's been accustomed to it. But
he adapted. They bring up earlier in the movie when Ma Kent is basically like, "I watched you struggle breathing when you were a child," and that's why. This
brings on so much destruction. My big pet peeve for any of these movies, even the Avengers movie, is so much destruction.
You know what I did during this scene? Okay, so to me, the Smallville fight scene is probably my favorite action sequence in any Superman film. The Smallville fight is fucking fantastic. I love the Smallville fight. Then you get like literally overdrawn, way too much noise, way too much crap during the Metropolis fight. And like I literally just put in my headphones, just watched it, and just listened to music because I was getting a headache watching this shit.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, they
Perry It's a Dragon Ball Z fight. It's a Dragon Ball Z fight. That's all
exactly.
It is. For 45, 50 minutes.
But at the end, Zod has been kind of defeated. His machine has been destroyed. And he has a showdown with Superman. And Zod's finally finding his powers. Superman's taking aim, ready to fly at him. And Zod figures out that he can fly. He's got all these powers from the Earth's sun, just like Superman does. And he has all the strength and everything from the yellow sun. I love that visual of him just taking flight for the very first time. And then they have this big, huge knockdown, drag-out flight flying over Metropolis. And you think that Superman has met his match. And let's talk about it. When I left this movie 13 years ago, I told you I cannot stand how this scene played out at the end of this movie.
Oh, Zachary.
Superman does not kill like this viciously. I know you must have notes on this scene in particular.
I actually don't. I just wrote down Zachary, which I just said. Because originally in the script, he was going to be sent back to the Phantom Zone.
Yes.
I don't know but he kind of wrote himself into a corner here, which is the issue.
Zod is so super powered.
Yes.
And Superman knows that number one, he's about to kill all these innocent people, and that's not going to stop. It's going to keep going and going and going. How are you going to defeat Zod? There's no really Superman's decision in this movie. The only way to defeat him is to break his neck.
Yes,
and
they
kill
wrote themselves into a corner.
Yeah, they had no choice to do it. But I did not like it, and a lot of people don't like it. It's a lot of pet peeves for a lot of people.
This is actually one of my least. I don't really have too many pet peeves about this scene. I kind of see what they're going for. Really couldn't do much else. I mean, if he tried to like do something else, like cover his eyes or like lift him up, fight, like whatever, this fucking movie never would have ended. And at this point, I'm ready for this movie to just end. Because of the last 45 minutes of nothing but noise. The
other thing.
Go on.
Superman upset after he killed Zod. Made no sense.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because that's the last of his people.
The inner turmoil inside of him doing that. Yeah, maybe.
And it's also the only time in 3 movies of this that we see him with any emotion. Which is kind of funny in hindsight.
Nolan objected to this completely.
Yeah.
It was David S. Goyer changed his mind. It was his idea, or Zack Snyder's.
It was Zack's idea, and Goyer wrote it. Yeah, because Nolan wanted to end with him being put back in the Phantom Zone.
They wanted to show Superman as an inexperienced superhero, being unrefined. And not the hero that he's going to be later on. I get that, but it's not the Superman that I'm so used to seeing.
I know
that killing is the last thing Superman wants to do, even though his worst enemy.
I'm guessing it probably doesn't affect me as much because I did not grow up on that Superman. Like this was literally my Superman. In 2013 when I saw this movie, first movie I bought on iTunes, by the way, was Man of Steel. So this was like, that's probably why I don't have as much of an issue. Even after doing all my reading, I'm like, like it is what it is. Like probably should have been different, but
right.
It is.
We went through the whole movie. Lois knows that he's Clark and God. Superman. No secret there. Clark does not. That doesn't start out in the Daily Planet. It ends at the Daily Planet. This is the last scene in the movie, with Henry Cavill wearing the glasses, the iconic Clark Kent look.
This is almost as bad as Martha. The whole "Welcome to the Planet."
It's forced. It's
did not like that. Did not like that. Did not like that.
No, and how they replaced working there.
And instead of Jimmy Olsen, there's Jenny. She was supposed to be a stand-in for Jimmy Olsen, which is fucking hilarious.
I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. And, I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
And Lombard, fucking, it's not Office Space. Fucking, what's his name? The sports reporter there. Lombard doesn't look anything like Lombard, and he's basically just a creep in this movie.
Yep. But yeah, that's the last scene in the movie. Him showing up, getting a job somehow at the Daily Planet with no credentials.
I mean, to be fair, they did that in Smallville. He was like 19 working at the Daily Planet in Smallville.
Yeah, he worked at his high school newspaper, so that gave him credentials.
That does, yeah, you're right. That does make a little sense. But still, though, they wouldn't hire some kid who just worked at his high school newspaper to be working at the New York Times. You know.
But movie made $225 million in the budget. Oh, sorry, had a 250.
Before we get into that,
$225 million
I want to
budget.
go into my notes that we did not get to. This is
Yeah.
gonna be real quick, rapid fire. Lois and Clark's zero chemistry. We talked about that off pod.
Yep.
Did they even test together in the same room? Methinks not.
Yeah, I didn't really put that together until you mentioned it to me off pod last
Yep.
week. But after we've been going through this whole watch the last 6 months,
Yep.
they have no chemistry whatsoever. They shouldn't even be on the screen together.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
There's a picture that you posted, I think, on your social media of them in a promo shot.
Yes.
Henry Cavill, it looks like he's touching her, but he's like 10 feet away from
It
her.
looks
at
like
the
he hasn't
same
taken
time.
it looks like he hasn't taken a shit in 3 days.
Yes. He looks so uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But
Yes.
yeah, I didn't notice it till this week.
Going on, I love Henry, but he is kind of wooden in this. A lot of his line delivery is pretty bad, and that doesn't get much better as we go on. I already kind of briefly mentioned this, but 19-year-old Clark, LOL. Love that Cal doesn't fuck off for 12 years like in 78, like it shows him helping people as opposed to going to the Fortress of Solitude and then just appearing as Superman. I do like that little touch. Without them meeting at the planet, there is no reason for him to love Lois and vice versa. Like, there's no reason for them to be in love in this movie or in the next movie.
There's no
there's no reason for him to like. But I guess that all takes place off screen between the two movies. I don't know, man.
But you still have to explain where that chemistry is supposedly going to be coming from, and there's no explanation. Yeah,
yes,
I get that.
And Superman is 33 when he first appears on Earth, or when they first find out about him. Same age as Jesus, but there's definitely no allegory for God in that whole situation. And Zach could have been one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. We could be talking like we talk about Frasier and anyone else. But he chose to go in directing instead. So instead of being a top-notch cinematographer, he's a decent director. I'll put him at decent director, and I like 85% of his films. But yeah, those are my notes. What's that?
I'll say mediocre for Zach. I don't think he's that great of a director. Visually, he's got some great scenes.
I was trying not to use the word mediocre. But because I do like 85% of his films. But yeah, I mean, he's all visuals. He's all visuals. And anything that like 300 is basically a page for page remake of the book.
Love that.
Watchmen is essentially that. He changes a few things in the story. And then we get to his other DC stuff. Owls of Ga'Hoole is fucking great. And of course, we know about how we feel about Rebel Moon. So that being said, let's get into the monies. The monies.
Yep. $225 million budget. Made $670 million in the box office, 291 of that in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Not too shabby, more than what Returns made. So they already made 200 or 300 million more than that. So it's a success, opening up a whole new universe. And the speculation going into this is, where are we going from here? And we'll get into that next week.
Oh yes, we will. That's it. Next week's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, next week, because it opens up the whole entire world, the universe that we did not expect Zack Snyder to be in charge of. And here we are, going on 15 years later, and there's a whole entire conglomerate of fans that still wish that this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, let's get into the news.
Thank fuck.
And it's not the new segment of the trailer. 3 pretty decent trailers came out. Great trailer, great poster for The Naked Gun.
Trailer looks great.
Liam Neeson comes out August 1st. Great looking trailer. Got a new trailer for The Sandman. Comes out July 3rd, just a couple of weeks. I cannot wait for this. It sucks that it's the end. I love the first season so much. I'm thinking of going back and watching the first season.
God damn you.
Yeah, it sucks it's not happening.
Why are so many people in Hollywood creeps?
Yeah, fuck. I don't get it. But and the trailer of the week.
Yes.
Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere.
Can't wait for this movie to be fucking incredible, make no money. Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, but Jeremy Allen White playing Bruce Springsteen.
Perfect.
It picked up at the end when he started singing Born to Run. Holy shit. Incredible, and I cannot wait to see how that plays out. But weekend box office last week, How to Train Your Dragon opened up with 83.7 million. Lilo and Stitch 15.5, Materialists 12 million. That's the one with Pedro and Chris Evans. And,
That's supposed to be really good too.
Fanning. Yeah, getting great reviews. How to Train Your Dragon opening day, 200 million globally. So yeah, doing good, decent numbers. Breaking news. I do have it. Joey Chestnut struck a deal with Nathan's to return to the July 4th hot dog eating contest. Do you remember why he was barred last year? Because he had the deal. He had the
deal.
Impossible hot dogs.
Yes, that's right.
And Nathan's like, no deal with Impossible. You have to eat real Nathan's hot dogs. So they banned him from the for July 4th. They had the big, huge Netflix thing with him and Kobayashi.
Yep.
But he's coming back next week for the July 4th hot dog eating contest. So champions outlive. I don't know what the
greatest athlete of our generation, my friend.
Greatest athlete of our generation. Yeah, he'll be playing his best.
Bro ate 33 Big Macs in 10 minutes during the pandemic.
Fuck me. How the hell? I can't even.
Or maybe it was 15 minutes. I forget what it was. It was like 33 Big Macs in like 15 minutes.
Yep. But yeah, we'll talk about that probably in a couple weeks. Tom Cruise. We mentioned it when the Oscars, when they came up with this thing for the stunt coordinator. They're going to have the best stunt coordinator award. Tom Cruise should be the one to give out that award.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually going to be giving him an honorary Oscar this year. It's going to give him for a commitment to filmmaking and theatrical experience in the stunt community. So I was kind of right on that.
Good.
Yeah. He's won for Magnolia. Is that the movie he was for? Something like that. Yeah.
I believe it was Magnolia.
Yeah. But yeah, Tom Cruise.
Our last movie star.
Tom Cruise. Yeah, him and Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Happy Gilmore 2, brand new poster with Adam Sandler. Comes out on the end of July 24th, the weekend of Fantastic Four.
Is this guy over here Danny McBride? Looks like Danny McBride.
No,
okay.
That's bad. That's Bad Bunny.
Oh, shut the fuck. Okay.
Yes, he plays the caddy in that movie.
Okay.
Brand
Danny
new
McBride
picture of the new He-Man.
Yes.
From what I hear, this guy is being canceled at the moment, and they're kind of being quiet about the movie. So
that's
good. The promotion of that goes. Speaking of Sandman earlier, brand new pictures of the Sandman. Cannot wait. And we got a picture of Jack Gleason, who was in Game of Thrones. What was his name in Game of Thrones? The young kid.
Joffrey.
King. Joffrey, yep. Playing this weird-looking priest named Freddy. No, that's Puck. And Freddie Fox is playing Loki. I can't remember what Freddie Fox has been in, but he looks familiar. But yeah, this comes out July 3rd, the first part on Netflix. I cannot wait. Harold and Kumar getting a new sequel about 10, 15 years too late. Cobra Kai creators, it's their next project, bringing in Cal Penn and what's his name, Harold and Kumar.
The other one.
The other one. They had a Christmas one. They had Guantanamo Bay. They had White Castle. The first one.
I think White Castle's the only one I've seen.
White Castle's pretty good. The Christmas one was weird. It was a 3D one. I remember that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tom Cruise earlier, Days of Thunder 2 is officially in the works, and Tom Cruise is going to star.
Why?
I don't know. I
get it. Like Maverick works, but like the first Days of Thunder was not the first Top Gun in the same. You know, like it was just a regular '80s Tom Cruise movie about a race car driver.
Yeah. Dan Trachtenberg. We talked about Predator all the time last week. Talking about what he's going to do for his next Predator film after Badlands. And he says he wants to bring back Naru, who was the the Native American fighter who was in Prey. And he wants to follow up. And it'll get made depending on Badlands. And it'll be a Killer of Killers follow-up as well if Badlands performs well. So hopefully they do. I hope people see those movies.
Me too. We both wanted Prey to be in theaters after we watched it.
Joining the cast of Hunger Games: Sunrise of the Reaping, Glenn Close. Don't know who the character is, but yeah, Billy Porter. I don't really know much about him other than his Oscar carpet stuff that he does. Netflix has picked up Tom Segura's Bad Thoughts for season 2. Great first season. If you can get through the first episode, it's pretty dark humor.
I gotta watch that because I love Tom Segura.
Get through. It's very much on the line of Dave Chappelle, The Chappelle Show. very
Okay.
much on the line of that.
I might check that out.
Little cringe. Some of it's cringe worthy, especially the first one. Yeah, first episode. Reacher season 4 has cast 3 new regulars for that season. Most notably,
Our
Jay
guy Jay.
Baruchel.
We love that
Yeah,
guy.
love Jay. He's been in everything from
Dude
my
hasn't
favorite film of all
aged in
time,
20
Undeclared.
years.
Yeah, it's not.
Him
Not
and
at all.
him and Ant-Man, they just don't age.
Yep. Yeah, looking forward to that. Just going into production soon. Dune Messiah has cast the children of Paul Atreides and Zendaya. And one of the kids is Jason Momoa's son, kid on the
Daughter.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
son. Yeah. Interesting. That's good because Momoa will be back, as we know.
Yeah, he will. Yep. And Christian Carmago, I don't know who he played. Brian Mosher in the original Dexter. And it looks like he's going to be returning for Dexter Resurrection.
Cool.
I guess the guy's talking about it, so we got just a couple more weeks on that to talk about as well. Scarlett Johansson, Jurassic Park Rebirth, says it honors the original. I think it really is a love letter to Steven Spielberg. Fans of the Jurassic universe can expect to really feel the DNA of the original Jurassic Park in this film. Getting terrible reviews, but all of them have for a while, so not surprised. This news came out today. Very cool news.
I love
Russell Crowe joining Henry Cavill.
Mm-hmm.
I love how our show links up to the news articles of the week sometimes.
It's fun.
Joining Henry Cavill in the Highlander movie, the Highlander reboot. He's going to be playing the character that was played by Connery.
Also, I know I mentioned to you off pod. Forgot to mention the Man of Steel. We happen to be reviewing Man of Steel on the anniversary of its coming out, which is fucking wild too. How it lined up like that.
yeah, very strange. Speaking of casting, Dave Bautista is being eyed to star in Roadhouse 2 with Jake Gyllenhaal. I love Bautista.
I forget who it was, but I heard the rumor is he's going to play a character from the original Roadhouse that wasn't used in the rebooted Roadhouse. Okay. So we'll see. That's just what somebody online said. So take that with a giant fucking grain of salt.
Speaking of taking this with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Aaron Pierre, one of the names being considered for the next James Bond.
Yes.
I love him.
I love him. If they were to do an African American Bond, I would have no problem with it. Everyone still throws around Idris Elba, even though he's like damn near 60. So Idris would have been a good candidate if they're going to do an African American Bond around the time Craig joined. But I mean, if they sign Pierre, I think Pierre's going to absolutely kill it. I just don't know if that's the way to go with this franchise.
All depends on the creator. They're going to choose to direct this.
And if the writing's good, then it's going to be fine. But we'll see.
This article came out today. The names being pitched for the next James Bond movie for director include Edward Berger. Don't know who that is. Denis.
Nope.
Denis Villeneuve. I don't want to see that either.
I love Denis, but I do not want to see that. Edgar Wright. I
want to see Edgar Wright. Jonathan Nolan. I'd love to see that.
I would love Jonathan Nolan also.
Paul King. Alfonso Cuarón. He was the one who directed Venom, I believe. In one of the Harry Potter movies, or maybe a couple of them. But he was a frontrunner. He has since dropped out.
Thank God.
We'll know more about this. It seems like they're in the realm casting.
Edgar Wright or Jonathan Nolan. Of course, I mean, my big thing would be Christopher Nolan, but they would have to give him complete creative control. He would get final director's cut. He would get everything. Probably have to do a trilogy out of it. But so Jonathan would be a good runner-up. What's that?
If you were Amazon with a name like Christopher Nolan and his pedigree, every single movie getting spectacular reviews from critics and fans, you would give him that control.
Christopher Nolan's favorite movie of all time is On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay.
If I was Amazon,
one of my favorite movies.
Yes. I would hire Jonathan Nolan to write, and I would hire Christopher Nolan to direct. I mean, obviously they'd work on the script together and just let that play out. Chris Nolan has carte blanche right now in Hollywood. He can literally do anything he wants. He turned down Troy, and now he's basically making the sequel to Troy as we speak. So Chris Nolan can do no wrong. He loves Bond. I just want whoever takes over this franchise, I want it to come from a place of love and not a place of this is my next big check.
Yeah, this would be a passion project for Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
for
which
sure.
is
It would be.
insane.
It probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if Amazon were in the right mind, I think they should definitely consider it. But,
Yeah.
talk about the money. The money they bought for this franchise, the amount of money they'd have to give.
Get
I
it
don't
off
know.
on a good foot with Christopher Nolan, please.
Yeah, fuck. Oh my god. That would be so. Could you imagine if we had a Nolan? Who would be Nolan's ideal part to be a Bond?
You want me to say it?
Don't say
Cavill.
Tom Hardy.
Cavill.
Ooh, yeah, you're right.
1,000%. Like I said, he's the one that pushed for Cavill for Superman. When they found out Joe Manganiello couldn't do it, I believe he could do it because I mean people say Cavill's old, but he's 42 right now. Turns 42 this year at some point. I think he just turned 42 in May. So he could easily do this role. I mean, Roger Moore was 55 in his first Bond movie, so he could do this, play Bond for 10 years. But
I'm thinking of regulars that work with Christopher Nolan. Like I don't know if I could see Cillian Murphy playing him.
I would. That was gonna be my second guess. Is that Cillian would be one of the guys he would think about doing.
Well,
Cillian's been in like all of his movies, so
I think maybe 10 years ago, I think Bale could have played him. Christian Bale.
he could have. I think 10 years ago, if Nolan got this job, Cavill definitely would have been Bond. If Cavill
I think
was in his
Cavill
30s.
10 years ago. Yeah, I think Cavill 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But even Cavill, like you mentioned, Cavill now would be pretty spectacular, especially after
cool.
we watched. We've seen him in Argyle. We've seen him in the Ministry.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah,
Everyone I
he's
tell to
great in
watch
too.
that movie loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to mention this because it's kind of swag, but it's not. But I don't even have a picture of it. It came out today. John Williams has this whole anthology box set of everything from the 70s and 80s coming out on CD. I'm hoping it comes out on vinyl.
Today is
But
the
whole
anniversary of Jaws, also, by the way. But yeah.
Yes. And it's back in theaters too if you want to watch it. I always say I want to see Jaws, but I want to see it in a pool or in the ocean.
Yep.
And being played on the big screen on the shore. John Williams anthology 1969 to 1990. It has all the soundtracks from that time period. Very, very cool on CD. Probably, I'm guessing, coming out on vinyl at some point. But that's cool.
That'd be worth getting on vinyl. I wouldn't pay for a CD these days.
This VR game looks spectacular. So it's called Titanic Escape Simulator, and you're on the Titanic as it's sinking, and you're simulating the whole entire thing trying to escape. I think that's probably one of the most creative VR things I've ever seen.
That'd be so much better if you could do it in a 4DX theater, have water flowing over you.
Oh my god! Comes out sometime on PlayStation in 2026 with PSVR.
That's dope.
Warner Brothers has resurrected its operations in the game department, and they're focusing on 4 key franchises: Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat, and DC. Not Lord of the Rings, nothing else. That's it. Yeah, interesting.
I wonder if Lord of the Rings has a deal somewhere else.
Yeah, because they're Amazon show. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Let's get into a couple things of swag.
Swag. Stuff we all get.
Come on, son. You know that's right.
These are shelf-worthy material right here, especially the Doc and Marty out of time at the Twin Malls. It looks awesome. You don't see too many pop figures with the facial expressions. Usually they have the old stoic facial expressions. Yeah. But yeah, this is them shocked as the time machine goes off into time. So yeah, really, really cool. And of course, Doc riding in the time machine as well. Yeah. Got some glimpses of the Fantastic Four in their spacesuits in Fantastic Four First Steps as pop figures. Looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
This weird popcorn bucket with Mr. Fantastic stretched around it. Speaking of Fantastic Four, we get Giganto, the very first villain in Fantastic Four #1 in of all things, a pizza commercial for Little Caesars. But the very first glimpse of him looks comic book accurate, and we know there's going to be some flashbacks in this movie going back to the first time they fought him. There's a memorial statue of that fight as well. So yeah, excited for that movie. Excited for Superman. Great time to be a fan of comics and geekdom in general. Robert Downey Jr. showed up. Ironheart full in promotion right now. Showed up and told Dominique Thorne, who's playing Riri, kind of handing the torch to her, saying, Iron Man loves Ironheart. So comes out next week, first 3 episodes, and the week after the second 3 episodes. So it's airing in 2 weeks. It'll be all done. So I cannot wait, kind of. So we'll talk about it in a second here. But the episode guide, we've got the episodes for that. Of note is episode 5. The M is highlighted in red. Is that where Mephisto debuts?
I don't even want to talk about Mephisto anymore because
until I see
we've been through this with WandaVision, bro. I'm done. I'm done talking about Mephisto.
It's been going on 5 years. Mephisto,
it seems like,
where is he?
It's weird. The show is coming out soon, and it seems like Marvel's burying it as far as promotion goes. So we'll see.
If anything, if Mephisto debuts in anything, because he has so much connection to the Hood gets his magical powers from the devil in the comics. He gets it from Mephisto. If we see Mephisto in anything, it would be this movie. The rumor has been all along that it's Sacha Baron Cohen coming in.
That was the rumor during WandaVision, for Christ's sake.
Right. The big rumor in this is that Dormammu makes an appearance in this as well. Recommended viewing for this movie, they said, was Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. The 2 movies were part of that, including Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, and Black Panther, of course, because that's where Riri debuted. But recommended viewing, that was part of it, the Doctor Strange story. Yep. So I'm wondering, I know Magic's going to be playing a huge part with the Hood, so I'm wondering where the story is going to go. We get 3 episodes next week, 3 episodes on July 1st, so we'll talk about it. Spider-Man 94, a brand new comic, 4-issue coming out, inspired by the cliffhanger, continuing the cliffhanger from the 90s Spider-Man animated series, which I'm in love with. I love it.
This comic seems right up your alley. Only 4 issues.
And 4 issues. The creator had no input in it. He went online talking about he had no input into it whatsoever. But continuing the story of where it left off, and seeing where that goes, be interesting. Thunderbolts coming out on digital on July 1st next week. Or is it next
Thank
week?
God, I've been waiting to see this movie forever, so I will be giving you my review as soon as I see it.
Yeah, great movie. We'll talk about the director of that in a minute. We got a new steelbook for that. It looks cool. They actually have the new Avengers on the label of that. They're cool. They abandoned the Thunderbolts that weekend.
Yeah.
Speaking of Thunderbolts, the director officially has been announced through Variety. Is Jack Schreier, who was the director of Thunderbolts, is going to be directing the X-Men. That was officially announced in a Variety article this week. And Marvel Studios reportedly has 4 major movies in development. That being one of them. Fantastic Four First Steps has a sequel, Blade back in production, and Black Panther 3, which we know that Ryan Coogler is in the middle of right now with Denzel Washington coming in to play a role. So a very exciting time. And they also added a date for December 15th, 2028. The 2 Decembers before that, we got Secret Wars, and then before that, we got Doomsday. So everybody's speculating, is this a new Marvel, like Star Wars did this? Is this the time to get the fans to go see in December instead of the Memorial Day weekend, or the May 1st weekend, beginning of May opening summer blockbuster season? Are they going to be doing that in December now? Could this be X-Men? Could this be a next big tentpole?
I hope it's X-Men.
It'll work if it is. Yeah.
I've heard that Variety announcing that. If you actually read the article, they don't say he's the director, but they kind of hint towards him being the front runner. So I hope that if he's signed on soon, like maybe he just hasn't signed the dotted line yet, that they can get that in production as soon as possible, and it's an X-Men movie. Is my hope.
Yeah. Massive DC news this week. Lots of it. First one is the casting of Clayface. Tom Rice Harris, unknown. He's in a Netflix movie. I can't remember what it was about, but I heard about it this week.
Technically, it's pronounced Reese Harris.
Reese Harris.
He's Welsh. Yeah, that's how you spell Reese in Welsh.
Okay, but he's going to be playing Clayface. Movie based off of the animated series with Mike Flanagan wrote it that way. Very exciting. Batman Begins. David S. Goyer says that Christopher Nolan told him not to go and write for Ben Affleck's Batman because it's confusing. We did one and just stick with that. Yeah, I just have a feeling there was just so much going on at the time. When Nolan was like, yeah,
honestly, though, that movie might have actually got made if Goyer did write it because of the faith Warner Brothers would have had in him doing Batman after The Dark Knight. But yeah, there's just so much baggage with everything at that time. I mean, they certain people rarely ever bring it up. They blame Jeff Johns for a lot of it, but he's the one that co-wrote the script with Ben Affleck instead of Goyer. So,
right.
Yeah, there was just a lot of baggage by the time that movie was getting ready to roll.
Right. Lantern. The director, James Hawes, promises that intergalactic elements are going to be a part of the Max series. Quote, it won't disappoint the classic fans. We get to meet the characters in quite a rooted way before it takes you intergalactic. So yeah, we're gonna be seeing the Lanterns, which is gonna be exciting. And Aaron Pierre, cannot wait to see him. It's a buddy cop movie, and then somebody flies, basically what they say, mixed between True Detective, Fargo, and No Country for Old Men.
You still got to watch the first season of True Detective.
I have seen it.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did watch it.
I watched last year.
I forgot you did watch it. Yeah.
And Superman. It's Superman all the time this week. Rachel Brosnahan saying that actors need to stop complaining about their superhero movies, saying, I don't know why people say yes to a project only to then turn around and complain about it. Do it or don't do it and then stand by it. I think she's completely right.
Yep.
A lot of people are turncoats in Hollywood. The whole Madam Web of it all last year and how Dakota Johnson in promotion started bad-mouthing it. People Magazine. Meet the sexy new Superman. David Cornsweet on the cover. This movie is in full promotion mode. Going to be a lot more coming up soon. In the next couple of
They
weeks.
haven't even done the media circuit really. They've just done interviews. So soon you'll see them on like Jimmy Kimmel and Fallon and all that stuff. So yeah.
James Gunn was on an interview today.
Yep.
I can't remember if it was on BuzzFeed in the article.
It's on if you go to HBO Max, it's on their DC Daily. They've been doing every
That's what it was.
They've been doing every actor from the movie. It comes out every 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks from now is going to be Cornsweet and Holt will be on it. It's a very good interview with James. There's one thing I'll talk about a little bit after you get through this.
Yep, but talking about the robots in Superman, we already know that Alan Tudyk's playing number 4, but he says that Bradley Cooper, Palm from Guardians of the Galaxy, who played Mantis, and Michael Rooker are the other robots. We thought that Bradley was going to be playing Jor-El. Seems like that's not the case, as far as we know. So who is Jor-El? Is there a Jor-El in this movie? We're not sure.
That's what we're still wondering. But the other thing I really wanted to bring up real quick is in the interview, at least the one I saw on HBO Max, is they were talking about Supergirl and how Lobo was originally had a huge arc in Woman of Tomorrow, but they had to remove it because of the amount of issues they were doing. So that's why he's actually in the movie, is because he was supposed to be in the book. So yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah. And this big, huge Rolling Stone article came out this week with James Gunn, and there's a lot of stuff to pick from it. I got some notes. We'll go through it a little bit one by one, but James talks about the DCU and the Batman merger and what happens to Batman Part 2. He said, I would never say zero because you just never know, but it's not likely. It's not likely at all. Talking about Part 2, the Batman being a part, Robert Pattinson being a part of his DCU. It's not canceled. He's just basically what he's saying is Matt Slowe is giving him time to give his script in. But he has faith in him in that story and finishing it.
I like how he said Matt Slowe, and then like an hour after that broke, they said that Matt was going to hand him the script on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Slowe, fuck off. Here's my script.
The other thing that the media was taking up on, geek media was taking up on, was the possibility of Spider-Man and Superman teaming up in a film. If we ever did it, it would have to be under someone who thought it was going to be awesome and wasn't just a cash grab, because I'm just not into that. So in other words, like it would have to be somebody that just loves those two characters, or loves a crossover like that, like an Avengers versus Justice League type of movie. It would have to be somebody that loves that, not just for the marketing, for the toys, for everything. It would have to be somebody that's neutral party for everything. I don't know how that would be. It would be way down the line. They're just the infancy of the DCU right now. So, Batman It's his biggest issue developing in the DCU right now. I'm not writing Batman, but I am working with a writer of Batman and trying to get it right. Our two priorities right now are finishing Wonder Woman and our Batman scripts. I mean, the reason why Batman is so hard is because you've had tons of Batman stories already told in film. He's trying to find what's that one story we haven't told yet. What can we tell?
And how can we make this Batman, especially like how can we make this Batman different from the Pattinson Batman, different without making it campy, of course. Different than the Bale Batman, every other Batman that came before it. So yeah.
Yep. He did say no camp, no funny, not interested in that, not interested in a funny, campy Batman.
Which is good because I was actually concerned about that when he took over because of the way James Gunn writes, and so that just alleviates a lot of stuff for me.
Talked about the Sergeant Rock movie. He says, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. We're still moving forward, but it's not going to be what would Peter want me to say here? So it's still moving forward, but yeah, right now it wasn't exactly where I wanted to be creatively. So it needs to change a little bit. So he took it off the table because of that. Looks like he's giving the creators the time to write their stories. And if they're not right to the point, he's going to just take it off and chop it up a little bit to make it up to standards or whatever he's telling for his overall story. About this Gods and Monsters phase of this whole entire universe that he's created. He has a favorite DCU project that has not been announced yet. And I think he mentioned something about he didn't want it to get out because he didn't want other people like Marvel or anybody else to copy the idea.
I was going to say, it reminds me of when BVS was announced, then Marvel changed their plans for Cap 3 and did Civil War. And announced that Civil War was coming out the same day as BVS, which then made Warner Brothers move BVS.
Yeah. But he says there's another TV show that's his favorite thing of all of this, hopefully getting made soon. And he says there's a movie, and he shuts himself up before he talks about it. He's not allowed to say what it is. There's a couple other movies that are being written. One of them is in pretty good shape. Another one that's getting closer to the start, and another one that he's writing for his next project. So another one he's been talking about for a while, which we
hopefully World's Finest.
Sequel to Superman. James Gunn says a very famous actor is working on a DC Elseworlds project, which speculation is Michael B. Jordan's Black Superman, which was one of the movies that was planned before James Gunn took over.
I just hope it was supposed to be an African American Clark Kent story. I just hope they go with Val Zod. That's a story that's never been told, so it'd be fresh and unique. I would love a Val Zod story. But
he said in order for it to take place in his new DC universe, it has to be a masterpiece.
Yes.
Masterpiece. So, he confirmed Supergirl Woman Tomorrow may have been retitled to Supergirl. Still deciding on that. Also said the Superman's flying scene in the trailer, this picture right here with the cross eyes, he did not love the shot the way it turned out, so he removed it from the film, but it's in the trailers if you've seen it. I actually like it. I don't mind it.
I don't mind it at all. It looks fine if you watch the HD, not the compressed version that people share around the internet. Right.
Lex looks at Superman like artists look at AI. He's not a real human, in other words. He talks about Superman and the Lex Luthor in this Superman. He clarifies that Warner Brothers does not depend on Superman. In other words, this does not need to be a huge blockbuster to show the success of how far we can get in this DCU. Just like Iron Man was not a huge box office success. It was a success, but it wasn't the $300 million opening weekend that everybody's speculating a movie needs to be nowadays. It just needs to be successful in order to make the next thing and to continue the story. But it doesn't have to be the ultimate big, huge movie of an Endgame level, whatever. But what else did he say? Regarding scrapping the legacy subtitle for Superman, even though I was one that gave it that title, I just wasn't sure. First of all, I'm sick of superhero title, the other name thing. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume.
BVS, Dawn of Justice.
Right, he's taking the colons. And Marvel is all in the colon thing. So yeah. And he also talks about the movie. Says movie industry is dying, mainly because people are making movies without a finished screenplay. I think this is the best thing he said in the article, because he's totally right. Marvel has this problem.
Marvel lucked out with Iron Man script not being finished because they had Jon Favreau in control of things. But outside of that, it's 1,000% correct.
Yeah. I love that he said that. And he addressed a DC fan who said who wants to restore the Snyderverse. This went all over on the internet, saying that I remember. I don't know if you remember the article, but he said that when this movie comes out, let's boycott it. Let's bash it on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's bash it as much as we can.
Reserve tickets and then don't show up so no one else can go see it. Yeah.
And he says 8 people. I'm not sure the 8 people that are complaining about it, you're going to actually listen to that guy. It's not going to impact the court.
I love how he said, I'm just assuming it's a guy. Yes. But every single person on Twitter that's part of the cult, I'll say, they're all saying that it was a James Gunn DC fan that did it just to make them look bad.
Oh man. But yeah, he says he thinks we'll survive. So
yeah.
And finally came out today the best poster for Superman. They've been doing
so
these
dope.
They've been doing these 30-minute screenings all around. They're starting this week. I think in Manila was where it was last night or night before. But this poster is so retro. And I mentioned to you off pod, I love the way the cape is on the black border because it looks like it's popping off.
I kind of wish it was just Superman though. They didn't have the faces underneath, but I'm in love with this poster.
But that's reminiscent of the Superman 78, 77, or 78, 9. 80.
But he just looks so good as Superman in that photo.
Yeah, looks awesome. Cannot wait. Next week, this is the end. That's it for this show. Next week, Ironheart premieres. Talk about that on the 24th. On the 25th, The Bear. Every single episode of The Bear season 4 premieres on Hulu. Next week, the Year of Superman continues in the Snyderverse. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. They open up the Justice League of it all. They not only bring in Batman, but they bring in Wonder Woman. There's a lot of that movie I love. There's some of it I really cringe.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun next week.
The other thing, Brightburn. I have not seen that. I'm going to be watching it next week. We'll talk about that. In our comic review, our final one for Superman this year, or for now at least, Kingdom Come. Movie. This is the one we wanted to end on before we get into Superman. So Kingdom Come. Alex Ross mostly regarded as one of the best Superman stories. So I'm excited to read that and get into it. And that's just the beginning. In a couple of weeks, we're gonna dissect the Justice League movie, see what happened with Zack Snyder, and
which
we'll also
Justice League movie.
I'm gonna do it. You don't have to do it. I'm gonna watch both.
Okay, I recently watched Justice League. Probably never gonna watch it again. I have all my notes saved from that though, so
good.
I might actually watch Zack Snyder's Justice League because I do have that on 4K. It looks fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna compare them both, and I'm gonna look up also. The other thing I was gonna ask you, Batman versus Superman, they have the Ultimate Cut, which is far superior from the original.
That's the one we're watching. Yeah. And
then the week after that, the finale of Superman. It leads up to the review of the movie, the new one. We're going to have a jam-packed episode that week. I'm not going to get into all the particulars, but, I mean, we got the end of the Snyderverse, how it imploded pretty much with The Flash, with Black Adam. We're going to talk all about the Superman cameo at the end of Black Adam and talk about how that fucking fucked up everything. And we'll talk a little bit about Superman and Lois. Talk about the show Krypton. I don't know if you've seen any of the show Krypton.
I've seen the entire thing. I fucking loved it. It was great.
Okay.
And it was canceled. I started watching it. Literally, as the second season was ending, they were like, "Up, we're done." I was like, "God damn it!"
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about everything leading up to what the reboot happened. Why James Gunn took over.
Just to let you know, Aaron Pierre is one of the feature characters in Krypton.
Excellent. So, yeah, very excited to talk about those and get into the big, huge review of next month. Will be Superman. Just in 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now. Holy shit!
3 weeks.
Very, very close.
Oh my god, it's getting there.
Very exciting.
There.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to you then. Peace.
Deuces.
We're the Geek Blurb crew, here to enlighten you. Talking all things geeky, from movies to wrestling to our podcast is the place where you wanna be for all the latest news and nostalgia from the 80s and 90s. We review comic book flicks and sci-fi hits, riding the wave of action movies with all the cool bits. From Iron Man to Star Wars, we cover it all. And when it comes to wrestling, we never drop the ball. Cheap Geek Blurb, we're the kings of the nerds. Rating movies and pineapples, our opinions never blurred. Join us each week for a geeky chat with the latest news and a dose of nostalgia that. So if you're a fan of the comic book craze, or a lover of sci-fi and all its maze, tune in to Geek Blurb, we're here to entertain, bringing you the best in geekdom, it's our domain.